So, hello, my name's Sherry Forsyth and I am a peak performance coach from South Africa. What we're talking about today is invisible illnesses. In other words, people who have illnesses that we can't see because they don't look sick. And what we're trying to do is increase awareness of some of these illnesses, many of them being autoimmune conditions, so that other people, our family and our friends, can treat us with kindness and compassion, and really understand that even though we look so well, actually we aren't. So today we're interviewing my beloved Mike. He's going to tell us about his illness, what it is, starting with what is the diagnosis, Mike, and what is the illness actually?
Well, hello everyone. I was diagnosed in 2011 with an autoimmune condition which has the very long name of chronic inflammatory demyelinating polyneuropathy. Fortunately, this gets shortened to CIDP. With this condition, disease, whatever you want to call it, the body or the immune system is attacking the myelin sheath around your nerves, and this makes you progressively weaker and weaker and weaker, and you have to be able to deal with this in some way or another.
Sorry, I'm interrupting. When you say weak, how weak are we? What are we talking about in sort of real life conditions? What was difficult for you to do?
Well, if we go back to when I was diagnosed in 2011, and maybe I can just answer that by starting off with how I was diagnosed. I started off with tingling in my hands and feet, which I thought was strange, and initially this turned out to be type 2 diabetes, but then I started getting progressively weaker and weaker. In April of 2011, I was still strong enough to run the Two Oceans half marathon.
Yay!
And that was great. But by June of 2011, I was so weak that I could barely get a glass to my lips. I would have to hold a glass in two hands and just get it to my lips. So that was quite scary. I was also battling to walk. I had developed sort of a stumbling shuffle, and that was really scary. So I was put into hospital, and the tests that they do, there are some neurological tests they do, as well as a lumbar puncture, where they're able to see from the liquid withdrawn whether there are any proteins or antibodies in that, and the path report provides you with results. One of those results. So just moving on to the actual treatment, I've been treated with an immunoglobulin, commonly known as polygamma-globulin or polygam, and this is administered via an IV drip over a period of, well, initially it was over 5 days. They call that a pulse dose. So I was in hospital to start with for 5 days, barely able to walk, but I did have the polygam, and I also had intensive physiotherapy over those 5 days. At the end of it, I walked out of hospital, but wasn't particularly. But then the polygam in, and within 2 weeks of getting out of hospital, we were walking in the Berg, climbing in the Berg. I was able to run 5 kilometers regularly.
If I can just interject there. So I carried on, when Mike was sick, I carried on running and training. When Mike, 2 weeks after his polygam, we went for a run, and he left me in his dust. He was speeding up the hills far faster than I could. That's how amazing his recovery was.
So it's a very potent medication, and many people go into remission straight away after they've had their, sometimes it's just a single dose, others do require the 5-day dose, And I genuinely thought that I'd gone into remission because I was so strong. I mean, this was like wonderful. I went from probably 15% energy to 120% energy. It was the most wonderful feeling. I just had so much energy and vitality and could do anything and everything. But wearing off, and I started a bit of a slide again, and getting a bit weaker, so into hospital for more polygam. I had variously 1 day, 3 day and 5 day doses over a period, and each time I would certainly be a lot stronger. I got to that 120% energy again, and then in 2017, one of the doctors treating me decided off his own bat and without consulting other doctors to take me off all of my medication in one hit. And to start with, I felt wonderful, but suddenly the symptoms started. I developed dreadful double or treble vision. I thought it was just getting older and my eyes were starting to go. I needed new glasses. In fact, had new glasses made, but then I got weaker and weaker until one day, within about a week of starting to feel really dreadful, I went to feed our dogs, bent down to pick up the dogs' dishes, and I fell over. Crawl to the door and lever myself up. Was taken straight into hospital, where I spent 3 weeks in 3 different hospitals. I had including a very specialized diet, and then onto the pulse dose of polygam, and then I had a week's intensive physiotherapy therapies that helped me quite a lot. I went into the rehab in a wheelchair and came out able to walk.
Mark, I'd just like you to explain as well, when you went into hospital after falling over with the dog's dishes, to try and give our listeners an idea of how weak you actually were.
Right, yeah, I was incredible. I couldn't stand, couldn't walk on my own. I couldn't sign my name even. My bank manager came in to get some documents. All I could do was to sign with a cross. I couldn't cut up my own food. That had to be cut up for me. I could just at a pinch get a fork to my mouth. And yeah, it was really scary. That was the weakest I was ever during this process.
And if I can maybe interject as well, during this time, so as Mark said, he was in hospital for 2 weeks, and then the 3rd week he was in a rehab hospital. During that 2nd week, I actually thought Mike was dying, to the point where we even spoke about it, because it looked to me like his whole body was just shutting down. Nothing was working anymore. So it was very terrifying for me to watch my husband, let alone how terrifying it was for him to actually be living it. And CIDP can, as Mark says, go into remission after one treatment. Some people get it in the more chronic form, which we are forever hopeful that he will go into remission. But some people do die from it. So it is a very rare but very, very serious illness.
Yeah, as Sherry says, it is quite a rare illness, but it seems to be becoming increasingly prevalent. A number of people have asked to speak with me about the illness and the treatment. Some of the has referred some of his patients to me just to get a first-hand idea of how the treatment goes and what happens. So from this treatment now, as I said, initially I went from the 15% to 120%, and after 2017 I went from probably 5% to about 85% energy, and it leaves me a little bit exhausted after 11. But overall, yeah, I'm pretty stable, and I'll take the stable because it means that my life can carry on as it should do.
So, Mark, how have you changed? How have you changed living your life to accommodate the conditions? How are you managing it to be able to do all the things that you do?
Well, what I do and what we do on a daily basis is in the mornings we meditate, and a good part of that meditation is just being grateful. So we express gratitude for what we do have, all of the good things that we have, and we smile, and we are grateful for our lives and what we have. So that's an important part of it. We also do some controlled breathing exercises, because that's really oxygenating the blood and the body and making it a bit sharper. And then I make sure that on a daily basis I do rest every day between 1 and 2 or around then. Try to sleep during that time, and just recharge during that time. We also try to make sure that we don't have too late nights. I find if we go around midnight, it's a bit too late for me, and I'm left the next couple of days feeling pretty shattered. But you know, most evenings we both worked a full day, and we have our dinner, we watch some TV, and we're in bed by about 9, 9:30 most evenings, and then try to get a really good night's sleep. So that's a large part of it. And then apart from the polygam, I also am treated with prednisone, which is cortisone, and together with other supplements, bits and pieces. And I try on a daily basis to lead a very, very healthy life in all aspects. So yeah, you do have to be careful of some of these treatments. My treating neurologist would like me to go off the polygam and onto something else, but for now we're just sticking with the current regimen. It seems to be working, and while it's working, we're carrying on with it.
We're grateful.
Yeah, really grateful.
So Mark, you've spoken quite a lot about the physical side and what you're doing to make sure that your physical is strong. But because this has been a chronic illness, so you've been suffering from that combined with diabetes for 9 years now, how do you remain positive?
Well, I suppose it's a strange thing, because I've never thought that I won't be okay. Sherry did mention that in 2017 we spoke about the fact that I was so weak and that I might die, but it wasn't a thought that stayed with me, and I'm convinced that I will continue to lead an active life for many years to come. You know, I can't say I do any particular mental training or anything like that, but I think a lot of it comes from the gratitude that I am comparatively well. And it is one of the things with these invisible illnesses, to look at me, I look absolutely fine. But people can see it where I might stumble somewhere, or I'm careful with a lot of steps. We were in Rio de Janeiro last year, and we climbed to the top of the Christ the Redeemer monument, where there was something like 300 steps going up. But we just went slowly, and I wasn't exhausted. I just took it step by step, got to the top, enjoyed it, came down again. So yeah, keep your mind strong. And as I say, I don't have any particular mental gymnastics or anything, but we do try to stay strong and positive. That's the big thing, just to be positive.
I think also to not have your whole identity wrapped up in the illness. In other words, I am CIDP or I am diabetic, but rather to live as if you are well and treat the symptoms as and when they arrive. And that was very wise advice that was offered to us by a friend of ours. And I think it's very valuable, because people do have a lot of symptoms, and you're quite wrapped up in what is going on in your life because you are ill, you sore, you're nauseous, you're losing your balance, whatever it may be. But to realize that you are not your illness, you are much more than that. And really, I think if people had to look at how we're living our lives, we do balance it really well, and we use a lot of our weekends just quietly and for recovery time. But having said that, we are both very social beings, so We do go out to be with our friends. We do entertain here as well. So, you know, from my side as the spouse of the person suffering, there haven't been that we're making now. Or should I say our lifestyle is not hugely inhibited because we've learned how to manage it.
Yeah, we do. We love to do. We walk together, we go bird watching, we go to the beach, we travel, and it is possible to manage these conditions. I do consider myself very lucky that there is this treatment. 30, 40 years ago, there wouldn't have been this treatment, and by now I would definitely be dead. So I'm really grateful that there is the treatment, and that we really do well on the treatment, and we live our lives, and we do what we want to do.
So Mark, as my last question to you, if there's somebody that's watching who has currently or recently been diagnosed with what?
There is hope. I think that's the big thing. There's a lot of hope. You will receive treatment. There is treatment. Just as CIDP is not that common, but in KZN we live, it is very common because so many HIV/AIDS patients, and most of them suffer from a similar version of CIDP because their autoimmune is obviously compromised, and they suffer with this as well. And I was very lucky when I was first diagnosed. There was a professor who is literally the world expert on CIDP, and he, together with my neurologist, devised a treatment program, and that's what we're following to this day. So, yes, I'd say to people there's a lot of hope. Get out there and don't let it be the big black sack on your shoulders. Just live your life and enjoy your friends and family. Live.
I think that's fabulous. So if you are listening to this, whether you're listening live or on the rebroadcast, if you have an invisible illness and you would like to maybe increase awareness of it, please feel free in the comment box below to leave us a message, and we'll make contact. As I said in the beginning of the video, our whole goal is to make people more aware so that we can start like a ripple of compassion and understanding, so that those of us who do suffer from invisible illnesses are not made to feel that we are weak or that we're trying to get attention. They are very, very severe illnesses, some of them, even though people look well. So if you would like to send an email to me on Sherry Forsyth, spelled CHERRYFORSYTH, we'll happy to receive any communication that you can offer. And as always, thank you for your time. And if you know of somebody who could really benefit from it, I invite you to share it so that we can spread the word on let's be more compassionate, let's be more understanding, and let's help people who do have these invisible illnesses to live as normal a life as possible. And thank you, Mike, for your time. And we are in this month of March, I'm doing a lot of interviews with people who've got invisible illnesses. So take a look at on my Facebook page and on my website. You'll see under the videos there are numerous interviews, and I hope that this might have helped in some way.
Thank you.